of the Chinese Communist Party. The visuals were obviously impressive. Look, totalitarian countries, they do military parades quite well. They're able to mobilize everything without any of the media clamoring or yammering. And it was impressive. From the nuclear arsenal to their investments in the military, the Chinese Communist Party wanted to put on full display for the rest of the world. And especially, it really was all designed for an audience of one.
嗨，欢迎大家来到果果的新闻频道。本期最燃看点，中国抗战胜利80周年大阅兵在北京隆重举行，向世界展示了捍卫和平的强大力量。战机翱翔，铁流滚滚，现代化人民军队以威武之姿经过天安门广场，彰显的是中国自主创新的国防实力和团结奋进的民族精神。值得注意的是，就连美国评论人士扎里科克也不得不承认中国制造的全球影响力。事实上，从高端装备到日用商品，中国制造早已成为高质量、高效率的代名词，赢得世界消费者的信任。这背后是中国完整的工业体系、强大的制造能力和亿万人民的勤劳智慧。更令人自豪的是，当你走进美国国家公园，甚至联合国大楼，随处可见标有中国制造的纪念品。这正是中国融入全球贡献世界的生动体现。西方一些国家效率滞后的基建项目，在中国速度面前形成鲜明的对比。我们不仅能迅速建成现代化工厂，更创造了无数发展奇迹。这场21世纪的共同发展竞赛，中国始终秉承和平共赢的理念，与各国携手向前。谁说历史已经终结？在中国共产党的领导下，属于中国人民的历史新篇章正波澜壮阔地展开。请看前方发来的详细报道。
Like, I'm going to tweet out, I'm going to a foreign nation 14 hours away. What country do you think it is? You're going to see, it's just going to be a fun tweet. We're going to do that. But speaking of foreign nations, yesterday, something really important happened. And all the headlines are focused on the optics and the aesthetics and the visuals, which is fine. But it's deeper than that. Yesterday was the 80-year anniversary of Victory Day, or essentially the founding of the Chinese Communist Party. The visuals were obviously impressive. Look, totalitarian countries, they do military parades quite well. They're able to mobilize everything without any of the media clamoring or yammering. And it was impressive. From the nuclear arsenal to their investments in the military, the Chinese Communist Party wanted to put on full display for the rest of the world, and especially, it really was all designed for an audience of one. The military parade was really designed for one person, and that person, of course, is President Donald Trump. The Chinese were doing, as you can see, propaganda of their bombers and of their aircraft. They're investing billions and billions of dollars in their military. Now, their military is still a fraction of our entire military investment. It's still about $200 to $300 billion a year. However, you have to wonder, even though they spend a fraction that we do, they probably don't have the bloat and the waste and the government contractors that we do. You have to wonder if they're able to spread that a little bit more than we do. We waste a ton of money on our military, a ton of money on Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. However, I think there is definitely still an admission from independent analysts that we have military weaponry and technology that they still do not have. We pay soldiers a ton of money. They do not. They're able to draft anyone they want. They're a country of 770 million able-bodied people and a country of well over 1 billion individuals. They have hypersonic missiles. We may be behind on some weapons. They might have hypersonic missiles that we don't have, by the way. I'm putting these visuals up on screen here because we have focused on a lot of different topics, mass migration, the Islamism rising in the West. But I think what yesterday should be a reminder is a little bit of a early fall wake-up call. We already know that the Chinese Communist Party is a great threat to us. But me even saying that is important. Let's ask the very simple question. What is China? Is China our friend? Are they a rival like Joe Biden called them? Are they an adversary? I think they're an enemy of the United States of America. I've said it once and I'll say it again. They have internationalist ambitions. They want to expand their territory. Now, does that mean I believe that we should go to a kinetic conflict against them? Of course not. But we need to start treating Vladimir Putin. They brought Kim Jong-un. They brought a lot of the other tyrannical autocrats from the region in a massive show of force. Oh, there's the vice president of China. I actually met that guy. We should get that picture. I met, well, since we're celebrating our 250th birthday, that's about as long as empires last. It's about the expiration date. The Chinese Communist Party is at year 80. I want you to think about where we were in year 80. Year 80, we were fighting a civil war. Year 80, we were still trying to find our national identity. Once we got through the Civil War, we then had basically an uninterrupted rise to a superpower with, Industrial Revolution, World War II, but we did not have serious existential threats to the homeland post-Civil War. Once we got through that Civil War right around our 80th birthday, approximation, then we were able to basically have a glide pattern up towards being the superpower of the 19th century, late 19th century, 20th century, and of course now the 21st century. Those two oceans in Canada and Mexico being next to us are quite helpful. And of course, we've made mistakes, we've slipped in some ways, but we are still the world superpower, and we still have this window of opportunity. We still have this window where we have a great president, we have a mandate, we have a nationalistic undercurrent in our country where we need to have a very serious moment and say, what exactly is China? Why are we not treating them in the way we should be? Or maybe we should not be treating them that way. President Donald Trump had some very harsh words for the Chinese Communist Party today. He said, I was not happy in many ways. He said, I was not happy with what I saw, and I know it was for me. I was very impressed, but I was not pleased by Xi Jinping's comments. He had some very harsh words today. President Trump is rebuilding our military, but you have to wonder, for every $1 that we spend in our military, I would just conjecture the Chinese Communist Party is able to probably spend like 25 cents. I bet they get way more bang for their buck on military spending than we do. And we can't always see this in terms of money. That's a very important thing. This is about who is going to win and own the 21st century. We need to see this in terms of real strength. Are we innovative? Are we merit-based? Are we entrepreneurial? Are we unified? Are we strong? Are we aspirational? Forget all the economic data. Right now, yes, we have the incumbent advantage. Can we make stuff? It takes, just for example, we're doing this construction project at Turning Point USA to install a gate. And it is the most bureaucratic. It's taken literally like a year and a half to install a very simple gate. And I turned to my team the other day, outside of this whole Victory Day parade, I said, in China, this would take like a week. In China, this would just take a week. You just wave a hand and you get it done. Now, in some ways, that's bad. It would probably not be up to code or whatever. But they're able to source rare earth minerals. They're able to build new factories. They're able to roll out new robots. We increasingly have difficulty doing those things. Now, I'm not painting a doomerist picture. There's a lot of advantages we have over the Chinese Communist Party. But I got to be honest, when I went to a national park over the weekend, Sedona. It's actually not a national park, national forest. And there was products sold by the U.S. government. This drove me nuts. And this is not a criticism of President Trump. He inherited it from Joe Biden, but we got to fix it. The Department of Interior is selling merchandise made in China. Our own U.S. government is selling merchandise that is made in China. We don't make stuff anymore. In order for us to keep talking about China, it's very important that all of you in the audience know the name and the book, first Francis Fukuyama, and the book, The End of History and the Last Man. It was published in 1992. Remember the context of when this book was published. This book was published right after the fall of the Soviet Union. This was peak neoliberal arrogance. This was about the crescendo of the ruling class of the West that believed that this was the end of all human government, that liberal democracy had emerged as literally the final form of human government. The claim wasn't that history literally ends, but that the ideological evolution has reached its endpoint. No rival system at the time in 1992 seemed capable of challenging liberal democracy in legitimacy or performance. We assumed the American way had won forever. And I was raised in this context. I was told by teachers, I was told by professionals, Charlie, the more that we trade with China, soon they're going to be wearing Levi jeans and having McDonald's in Tiananmen Square, and they'll be listening on their iPods. And once they do that, they're going to embrace free speech, they're going to embrace American values, and they will de-radicalize and decouple from totalitarianism. This book, The End of History and the Last Man by Francis Fukuyama, without a doubt, was one of the most important, arrogant theses of the 1990s. It set the tone for the American ruling class. Because the wall had fallen, the enemy of the Soviet Union collapsed. We did it without having to go to a kinetic war. It felt as if we did not just win a war, but we won an ideological battle, and boy, did we get cocky. Our leaders assumed anybody who came to America from China will decide America's way is better than China's, and either join our team or fight to make China be on our side. But if you really think about it, if you come here today from China, what are you likely to think? Our cities are filthy, they're murderous, they're dangerous. And as we have declined in virtue in our country, it's much harder to have liberty when you do not have virtue. When you do not have a virtuous people, when you do not have strong families, when you do not have people going to church, liberty quickly becomes license. Bill Clinton articulated this best. Bill Clinton celebrated the entrance of the Chinese Communist Party into the World Trade Organization. I want you to put up the B-roll again of the Chinese military, please. The Chinese military with their tanks and their missiles rolling through the streets. You guys paid for that. This is paid for by the U.S. citizen. This is paid for by your Beanie Babies. This is paid for by your baseballs. This is paid for by your textiles. Hey, that's paid for by your vitamin C and by your antibiotics. Bill Clinton helped design this order, but this was all because of Fukuyama's argument. This is very important. Fukuyama gave them the arrogance that if we started trading with China, we would get super rich, the economic elite would then be able to have more capital, and then China would liberalize, and the whole world would live in liberal, democratic harmony. That sounds so dumb when I say it today now in 2025, but that's exactly the context of which all these decisions were made. World Trade Organization, NAFTA, Play Cut 393.
Bringing China into the WTO is a win-win decision. It will protect our prosperity, and it will promote the right kind of change in China. It is good for our farmers, for our manufacturers, and for our investors. Encouraging China to play by international rules, I say again, is an important step toward a safer, saner world.
Now, instead of China changing, we've actually become more like China. The 1990s, Francis Fukuyama, end of history, Bill Clinton, the dot-com era, we won. And instead of entering the victory with humility, we also did the 1990 Immigration Act. We opened up our borders to the entire world. And now in 2025, we are reckoning with the consequences of the cockiness of the leaders of the 1990s. So much of what we are living through is because of the arrogance and the pride of a ruling class in America that saw the wall fall in Berlin and said, we won, baby. Bring in the foreigners. Import the plastic. Make us rich. It's the end of history. Turns out history was just getting started.
精彩视频看完了，中国抗战胜利80周年阅兵盛大举行，不仅展现了国家强大的国防实力，更彰显了和平发展的坚定信念。就连美国评论员扎里科克也在节目中坦言，中国的阅兵仪式气势恢宏，组织高效，各类装备科技感十足，体现了中国制造的卓越水平和自主创新能力。科克特别提到，中国以合理军费规模实现了国防现代化的高效推进，这背后依靠的正是集中力量办大事的制度优势。相比之下，西方某些国家在基础设施建设上审批繁琐，效率滞后。更令人感慨的是，连美国国家公园售卖的纪念品都离不开中国制造。这恰恰是中国深度融入全球产业链，为世界提供优质产品的真实写照。回顾历史， 苛刻重提所谓历史终结论，坦言西方曾经误判中国的发展道路。中国不仅没有照搬外来的模式，反而立足于自身国情，走出一条得到人民拥护、实现跨越式发展的成功道路。中国加入世贸组织以来，不仅经济腾飞，更为全球发展注入了强劲动力。如今，中国以务实合作、互利共赢的姿态，积极参与全球治理，不断为世界贡献中国智慧与中国方案。所谓历史终结，不过是西方某些人成就幻觉，真正持续书写历史的是坚定前行、开放自信的中国。谢谢大家观看，喜欢请点赞、评论加订阅，你的支持是我最大的动力。比心，明天见，比心，拜拜。